Episode number 893, Lasting Relational Leadership.
You're listening to the official BNI podcast with BNI founder and Chief Visionary Officer, Dr. Ivan Misner. Stay tuned for networking and referral marketing tips from the man who's been called the father of modern networking, along with suggestions and insights into getting the most from your membership in the world's largest networking organization, BNI.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the official BNI podcast. I'm Priscilla Rice, and I'm coming to you from Live Oak Recording Studio in Berkeley, California, and I'm joined on the phone today by the founder and the Chief Visionary Officer of BNI, Dr. Ivan Misner. Hello, Ivan. How are you and where are you?
Well, I am in Austin this week at home. I just spent a better part of a week with my co-authors of another book I'm working on called Garage to Global. How do you take your business from your garage to a global enterprise? So that was
That sounds
an interesting week. Yeah, it's going to be a great book, I think.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting topic.
I have another interesting topic today with someone who I've known a very long time. That is with my guest today is Mike Holman. Mike has been involved with BNI for 25 years. He started his journey as a BNI member first and then became a member of the leadership team. And then 2 years into the journey, he was given the opportunity to start a brand new territory in the United Kingdom and went on to actually own his own BNI franchise there. In June of 2022, he was given the honor and opportunity to become the BNI National Director for the UK and Ireland. And Mike says he proudly adores that role. Mike, welcome to the BNI podcast.
Thank you, Ivan. Pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you. So we're talking about lasting relational leadership. Explain that.
Yeah, there's many structures around the world that I actually admire. And you look at these buildings and these structures, and they've been there for hundreds, thousands of years sometimes. And every one of these structures has an incredible foundation beneath it that supports it. Well, I truly believe as a leader and as a member, we also need to have those foundations in place. And those foundations as a leader or a member really come through the relationships that we build. And if we want something that's going to last a long time, then we invest into those relationships.
Yeah. So one of the first things on this topic that you wanted me to talk about was, do people really know me? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I've learned a lot over the years personally myself. And I remember a breakthrough moment when I really felt I developed as a leader. It was on the back of a lot of learning. It was on the back of Simon Sinek's Start With Why. And I remember standing up in front of a membership. I was the executive director, and I was trying to explain to the leaders of the region what we should be doing, the direction we should be going. And it was falling on deaf ears. Mm-hmm. People are looking at me thinking, yeah, all you care about is growing your BNI franchise. You don't really care about us. And I stopped and I just basically told them what my purpose was. And I told them really from the heart about why I cared deeply about their success. And it completely changed the environment in the room. People come up to me afterwards, said, I really understand what's driving you. And I've used that ever since really to try to inspire other people to share their story. I read a title or a quote in a book many years ago now. I can't remember the person who said it, but it says, leaders are leaders, not due to their rank or title, but their ability to influence people to want to change. And that always stayed with me. And I also remember a quote of yours, Ivan, which was, if you want to influence people, inspire them and transform them, tell great stories. And there's no greater story than our own story when we're building relationships.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in leadership roles are so focused on the how, they forget about the why, not only their personal why, which is what you're talking about. And I think that's important. And I found that when I was visiting individual chapters, I was basically a director. I would always go there and say, look, I care about your success. I want you to be wildly successful in this organization. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm, offering the suggestions that I am. Because people do naturally go to, well, you just want to, make more, sell more, whatever business you're in. Everybody always thinks that about you. But if you start with, your personal why, but also I would add to that, the why related to the topic that you're discussing. So if you're talking about attendance, why is attendance important? what what's the data behind it? What's it show? But people don't care about how until they understand the why. And when you can show that attendance absolutely increases the number of referrals in a chapter, then people are willing to listen to the how. So the why factor to me is critical.
I remember, Ivan, you said, I think I must have heard it 20 years ago for the first time, and thankfully many times since, that you've always said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that goes through every part of what you're saying there, understanding the why we encourage people to do the things that they do in any aspect of their membership to help them get the best out of their membership.
Yeah. And, you can talk about how you care, but you also need to show them that you care. There's an old quote. I see if I can remember it. I cannot hear the words you're saying because of the behavior you're showing, or something like that. It's a phrase like that. And how you behave, how you act, shows whether you care or not.
Yeah, and I'd really encourage all our members to really tell people their story, why. And we have an amazing tool in BNI, Ivan. I'm sure you created the gains profile.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we get a little bit too transactional with that gains profile. We think about the goals of our business, the accomplishments in our business, the interest. But taking that to a more personal level really helps people connect with one another. So what are your personal goals? What do you want to achieve for yourself, your family? What's your ambitions? And when we get into that personal level with our fellow members, that's when people, I truly believe, truly open up to one another, because we may be the expert at what we do in our industry. But if people don't genuinely connect with us because they don't really know us, then they can be reluctant to be passing us those referrals that we all truly would love to see our members get.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people bypass that in the gains exchange. The gains exchange is written in a way that talks about some transactional issues, like, what are your goals and what are your accomplishments, but what your interests are really relational. And we tried to break it up so that, people were trying to focus on both. And it's very important. I find that quote, by the way, what you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear the words you're saying. And so, it's important to say these things and then behave that, walk the talk in what you do. So talk to me about the depth of relationships, depth versus breadth of relationships. I know that was one of your topics.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, about relationships. In BNI, I encourage all our members, think about the room of people around you. Think about the depth of relationships you have with people. We have a great opportunity to get lots and lots of relationships in BNI through our chapter, beyond our chapter. But I encourage people to really invest in those key relationships in their room that they have around them. It's amazing. We have chapters that are 100+ members all around the world, but every single member probably needs, I'm not sure you think, Ivan, probably 8 to 10 really good, strong relationships they can manage and focus on and get the most out of. So are we actually really investing into those people, getting to really truly know them, helping understand the referrals they want, how we can educate and train them how to find the referrals that we want? So I think that's really important, that people do invest, if they want to build a relationship with people, that they invest deeply into those relationships and not have the scattergun approach to relationship building.
Yeah, two things on that. One is if your network is a mile wide and an inch deep, it'll never be very powerful. So it needs to be both wide and in places deep, which is what you're saying. You need to have some relationships that you, in fact, go deep and you know them well and they know you well. And that's the only way you're really going to build a powerful personal network.
And you reminded us of that great story of your own where you talked about the roots of a tree.
Yes.
When there was a storm. Do you want to share that one again? I love that.
Yeah, I've talked about it on a podcast before. When I lived in Southern California, there are these eucalyptus trees that were brought from another country into Southern California. And in Southern California, we have these Santa Ana winds that were really, really high winds. And oftentimes in the news, you'd see these trees that had fallen over, and they're almost always eucalyptus trees. And the reason they're eucalyptus trees is that those trees have a root system that spreads very wide, but doesn't go very deep. So when it gets really tall and the wind hits it, it knocks it over. And I see this when I saw that when I lived in Southern California, I thought of members who, when they were going through difficult times, they had this wide network, but it didn't go very deep. And so their business would just fall over because they didn't have this wide network beneath them, which I think is absolutely critical.
I love that story.
Yeah. So your last topic that you wanted to talk about was whose story are you part of? Talk about that a little.
Yeah, it's really, I used to say all the time, BNI changes people's lives. And actually, no, it doesn't. People change people's lives.
Yeah.
BNI is the operating system, and we have the ability to bring people together, and it's people that change people's lives. So I'd ask everybody to think about whose life could they be impacting this week, next month? Who is the person you see the greatest potential in? Who is the person whose behavior may have changed and you're a little bit concerned about them? Who is the person you're indebted to?
Yeah.
Who is the person you'd really like to see be a success? And just invest into those people. We talk about the principles of BNI, givers gain, but I truly see the givers give are the ones who are the true leaders and the people that other people admire and respect in BNI. And I would just encourage everybody just to reach out to one person, because they can really influence that person and change somebody's life by being in their story.
I agree completely. It's not who's in your story, but whose story are you in that I think makes a difference in people's lives. We are literally almost out of time, but I know you had a short, maybe you can make a short story about your childhood.
Well, I mean, a lot of people ask me this and say, well, what was the story you told your members that influenced them? And it's simply this. When I was growing up, I came from a very working class background. My father was a bus driver. And as he was a bus driver in the 70s, he would be working lots of shifts at the weekend. He could earn more money doing that. And he'd work double shifts even at the weekends. The result was I didn't get to spend much time with him. So growing up, me and my dad didn't have a great relationship. He was never a bad dad. I was never a bad kid. We just didn't get much time together. But it did mean that relationship was a little bit soured. And then I realized only later in life the reason he did it. He worked those hours. He sacrificed time with the family because he needed to put the clothes on the back. He needed to put the roof over our head. He needed to put the food on the table. And I turned around to our members and said, I never want any of our members to have to sacrifice their family for their business or their business for their family. I truly believe BNI can help you in all aspects of your life. My father had no choice. You do.
Yeah, what a great story. And it's good that you shared that with your members, and that kind of personal connection can make all the difference. Mike, I appreciate what you do, and thanks for your many years in BNI. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Ivan. It's been an absolute pleasure all those years. It's been an honor.
All right. Well, we need to have you back on BNI podcast.
Thank you, sir.
Priscilla, back over to you.
Okay, that was wonderful. Thank you. That's it for this week. This podcast is sponsored by MeisnerAudioPrograms.com. These audio programs will provide you with the tools and the inspiration to powerfully enhance your BNI experience. So check out the great material that's available to you at MeisnerAudioPrograms.com. And then use the promo code IVAN50 for 50% off of everything. All of the proceeds go to the BNI Foundation. Thank you so much for listening. This is Priscilla Rice, and we look forward to having you join us again next week for another exciting episode of the official BNI podcast.